welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and this month for my big vlog that I want to do, I am going to do a video about playing with time. So daylight savings time is coming up here in a couple of weeks, and it is time to spring forward. Not so much looking forward to that, but it does mean that spring is right around the corner. And in lieu of that, I will be reading books that have time travel elements within them. Good morning, guys. So today is February 29th, and I have officially started my first book for this time travel vlog, and that is Rip Through Time by Kelly Armstrong. This one is following Mallory, that she is a 30-something woman in 2019, that she is visiting Edinburgh to, her grandmother is dying, and she's visiting Edinburgh to spend time with her grandmother before she passes. And one night she goes out for a jog, and she hears something happening in an alley, and because she is at home, in her home in Canada, she is an investigator, and she hears something going on in this alley, and she's not really sure what's going on, so she goes to kind of check things out, make sure that the people that she's hearing are okay, and she is strangled. She wakes up the next day, and she finds that she is no longer in 2019. She is in completely unfamiliar territory. She doesn't know exactly what's going on, but she come to find out she has somehow gone back in time to 1869 Edinburgh. So she went back 150 years, right? Yeah, 150 years. And is now in the body of a girl, Katrina or Katriana. I've started listening to this on audiobook originally, and it says it as Katrina, but it's spelled as Katriana. Either way, she is in the body of Katrina, and Katrina is the maid in an undertaker's home. And she was strangled 150 years in the past in the same alleyway as Mallory. And so she's trying to get her bearings. She's trying to figure out how she could possibly have gone back in time 150 years, how the heck she's going to get back, and just trying to kind of lay low. But at the same time, she's a Canadian in Scotland, and she doesn't know all the proper terms and things like that. She doesn't know all this stuff because, I mean, why would you know the proper terms for everything for 19th century Scotland? So far, I am about 75 pages into this now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really intrigued. Him being an undertaker, he is also doing studies of like the human body and like forensic science, and so that's really intriguing to me. I was one of those kids that I loved watching CSI, and I really took a big interest in forensic science when I was a kid and as a teenager. And so that's really intriguing to me. So far, like, I'm really curious of how things are going to play out. She just asked the doctor, Dr. Gray, to show her where the events took place, that where it happened that she got strangled, and she's having to navigate that. And she's also learning that Dr. Gray, things aren't as easy for him either. He is well off. She says that they are upper middle class, but it's still very unconventional for the time period that he's a black man in Scotland as well as a doctor. And so it's very interesting so far. I'm really curious to see how it's going to go. It's rather dense reading it, But I have really enjoyed the audiobook so far, so I'm kind of debating on whether I'm going to continue reading it physically. I probably will today at least, but I do like having the audiobook to listen to when I'm going back and forth from town, because I do have quite the drive with where I live. So I do like the audiobook for this, and I am enjoying reading it physically as well. So I'm probably going to see how far I can get in this physically today, and maybe pick something up as well, seeing as tomorrow is March 1st and I have lots of video plans, and spring break is coming up for my kids, so they are going to be everywhere. So it's not always easy to film when my kids are home, so I'm trying to get ahead of things and really get things going and get things ready, so that way when my kids are on spring break I can focus on spending time with them rather than trying to hunker down and finish off videos. Like I said, I'm about 75 pages into this right now. It's only like 350 pages, I think, and so it's not super long, but I'm not quite a third of the way through yet, but I am enjoying it. I like the writing style, and I do like at the beginning that she says that she is not Scottish, she is a Canadian, and so any mistakes are her own, but I think she actually does this really well because the main character is a Canadian in Scotland, so not everything is perfect. You know, she doesn't completely understand every little detail that is happening around her in this book, and I've never been to Scotland, so I mean it's not, doesn't make head or tails difference to me. So, but yeah, so far I'm really enjoying this, and I'm really curious to see how the time travel element plays out, how it's going to work for her to get back to her own time, if she is going to go back to her own time. That is always something that I wonder about with these books that kind of play with time. I always wonder, do they actually always go back to their own time, or do they decide, nah, maybe not, I'm actually going to stay where I'm at? So I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. She's finding out right now that Katrina, the body that she is in 1869, is not just a meek and demure housemaid. There's been hints at the phrasing that they use is a felonious past. So she got herself into trouble from the sound of it, and the head maid that runs the household doesn't seem to care for Katriana very much. She talks about her trying to skip out early when it's her half day and things like that. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go, what Mallory is going to learn, and I'm also really curious to learn more about like the forensic science aspects that are incorporated in this book, because I have seen other books by Kelley Armstrong that are mysteries, but I've never read any of them. So I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. Like I said, I'm going to keep reading this physically today, and I will check back in with you when I have a little bit more to say. I've done a terrible job updating you because Saturday night I finished A Rope Through Time by Kelley Armstrong. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed the mystery in this. I really enjoyed her writing style. And I really enjoyed the setting because she's in Scotland, but she hadn't been there since she was a kid. So like any kind of misrepresentations or things that she didn't remember about the history in this, like you can see it, because like I've never been to Scotland, so like everything that I'm getting from this is just my imagination. But I can understand, like, if you were just visiting there and you'd only been there to visit your grandmother as a kid, like you wouldn't think of those things. You wouldn't think of the history of things. But I really enjoyed her relationship with Dr. Gray and the partnership that they grew, and absolutely loved Mallory's friendship that forms with Isla, which is Dr. Gray's sister. I really enjoyed that a lot. And like I said, I had a really great time with this book, and I've already put the next book on hold at my library because it is a series. There are 2 books out now. The 3rd one, I believe, comes out in May of this year. So I'm excited to continue this and actually try some more of her writing, because I really enjoyed her writing style and I had a great time with this book. The time travel element, because it's a series, it was obviously a huge part of it. However, because it's a series, it didn't like solve itself, which I was kind of disappointed with the ending of it, because the mystery plays out and whatnot, but the time travel element does not. So I'm going to continue the series. It did bring it down to a 4 stars with me, because I was really, really hoping for something to happen more with her time travel, for her to learn some things that had to do with it rather than just still be caught up in the dark. Also, this morning, I have officially started Kindred. And I'm about 100 pages into this now, so I'm nearly halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of like The Time Traveler's Wife, that the husband, he just disappears and he wakes up and he's not sure when or where he is. Except with this one, she keeps going back to the same place, but different years throughout this boy Rufus's life, that he seems to need her in some way. He's getting himself into trouble and he's needing her help. Her name is Dana, and she's going back to kind of help Rufus, and come to find out Rufus is actually one of her ancestors. And so she sees the connection there, but she's not really sure why she is traveling back in time to help him and to see him. And at this point in the book, she has actually been able to take her husband back in time with her. Not intentionally, she didn't really mean to. It's just he kind of grabbed a hold of her when she was fading and came along for the ride, basically. So what's happening is that Dana is traveling back. She gets dizzy, she gets nauseous, and then she finds herself back in 1815, 1819, and various years, like I said, throughout this boy Rufus's life. And it's back when there's still slavery, and being a free black woman is unheard of. Very, very uncommon. And it's really, really interesting. It's written very plainly, like you don't get a lot of descriptors, but it's very interesting. But she was able to take her husband back with her, and she's trying to figure out like the reasoning for why she is going back to the early 1800s to see her ancestor, and like what part she's supposed to play and how she's supposed to not only get back, because she believes that there is a connection with her fear in order to get back to her own home in her own time, but she's not exactly sure how it works. And she's not really sure how to stop traveling back in time to see Rufus and see what's going on. Rufus has pretty much accepted her. His mother and father, however, don't trust her in the slightest, because she is an educated black woman in 1819. And so they don't trust her one bit. Like I said, I'm very intrigued. Like, this book is written, it reads really, really fast, and it's written really well. Like I said, it's not super descriptive, but it's really interesting, and I'm very intrigued to continue reading this. It's only around lunchtime right now, and like I said, I'm already over 100 pages in, and I'm really enjoying it. I wasn't really sure what I was going to think of this one when I started it. The very first few pages, the prologue in this, shows her coming back to her own time and her husband, and she's in the hospital. She loses her arm above the elbow, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going to play into it, but I'm also very intrigued to see what happens. So I'm going to keep reading this today. I will try to do better about updating you with this book as well as the rest of them that I plan on reading for this vlog. This weekend just got away from me. It has been snowing out and crummy all weekend, and so we just had a really cozy weekend. Didn't really do a whole lot. I didn't really read a whole lot, but I did, like I said, finish A Rip Through Time. So I'm going to keep reading this, and I will check back in with you when I get further along and I have more thoughts. Okay, so thought I would give you an update, but it is 4:16 right now. I will be heading down to the bus here shortly to pick up the kids, but I wanted to give you an update. I am officially on 189 pages into Kindred. This book is intense. Like, it talks about her hoping to have something scare her so intensely as to send her back to her own time. And then she finds out that Rufus, the one guy that she thinks that she should be able to trust, that he's been lying to her and never actually contacted her husband. And so she tries to run away, and they find her. and they beat her for it. Which, I mean, you know, if early 1800s slavery, whatnot, they feel like they have a right to her and whatever. But they beat her, and at that point, like, she wants to give up. She doesn't care anymore. Like, she's starting to think, okay, well, I really hope that he has a great rest of his life and has done better without me. Because she just didn't have anything left. This book has been intense, and it's been really interesting to read, and I have really enjoyed it. The time travel element is pretty minimal in this one. It's definitely there. It is absolutely there, but she's traveling through time less frequently now, to where she's staying on the plantation for a couple months at a time. You okay? So the time thing isn't happening as often because she's staying at this house on the plantation for like a couple of months at a time versus just a few hours or a couple of days or whatever. She's staying there for longer, and so it's not happening as often. I do have about 75 pages or so left, and she just traveled through time again. Her and her husband, they just traveled through time again. So it's been a wild ride. It's been really interesting, and I never would have picked this up if it weren't for YouTube and for this reading vlog idea that I had about playing with time. So that is one thing that I will absolutely say for having this booktube channel, is I am reading some books that I never thought that I would have. Having opportunities that I never thought that I would have. And I'm really appreciative of that because it's really interesting. There's a lot of different books out there, and there's a lot of different things to read about, and things that you like and things that you don't like. Just like everybody always says, just because one person likes a book doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to hate it, or vice versa. Just because you don't care for a book doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to love it. I am really enjoying this. Like I said, the writing isn't super descriptive, but it's descriptive enough that you see it, you're engrossed in it. I have literally been binge reading this all day long. It's not a very long book. It's only like 265 pages or so, but I've been totally engrossed in it, and I have been reading it. I've been binge reading it today, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a very interesting perspective that I've never read before. I'm not sure what my rating is gonna sit at for this yet. I think I'll just finish the book and kind of see how it plays out. But I will check back in with you when I finish it, and I will give you my final thoughts. Hi guys, good morning. So today is March 6th. It is Wednesday, and I finished 2 books for this vlog already. Yesterday, I finished Kindred. Sorry, the lighting is not great. It is 7:40 in the morning. But I finished Kindred yesterday. So this book is broken up. I thought they were chapter titles, and they kind of are. It's kind of broken up into sections. So if you look at the contents here, if you can see it, there is the prologue, and then there's the river, the fire, the fall, the fight, the storm, the rope, and the epilogue. So it's broken up into all the times that he brings her back for one reason or another. And she learns that if she is in a really life-threatening situation herself, if she believes that she is going to die, then she can kind of force herself back to 1976. At one point, I associated this with her traveling to almost kind of like the time traveler's wife, where he can go to different times and whatnot. And it's not exactly like that, but there are similarities that I found. This book was so interesting because as a modern, well, at the time that this came out, because this book came out in, I believe, 79. Yes, this book came out in 79. But for a Black woman in 1976 to go back to the early 1800s, where she's having to witness firsthand slavery and the horrors of slavery and being a Black woman at that time. And this book was intense. It was crazy. And it was explored so interestingly. It was written it wasn't overly descriptive, but it was descriptive enough that you got very immersed. I read this in just a little over a day, and I was very intrigued. Like, it was, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just very interesting, and it was horrible, and it was heartbreaking, and it was all the things. It was, you really felt for her, and you really felt for the people that she was around and that she was interacting with. Rufus, he grows throughout this book. He grows older. I think he's around 25 towards, like, in the last portions of this book. He's right around 25. So she sees the progression of Rufus from, like, being a little kid into being a young white man in 1819 or so. Being a young white man right around that time, where he's starting to take over the house and the responsibilities of his father that his father's had with owning slaves. And it was really, really interesting. I gave this book 4 stars. I'm not really sure what could have made it a 5 for me. It just didn't quite make it, but it was so interesting, and it was such a good book, and it was written so well. She explored this incredibly, and I really enjoyed it. So far, I already have a win. Both of these books that I've read for this vlog, I have given them 4 stars, and they've been really interesting. They've explored time travel in very different ways. This one, she goes back in time with connections to the woman who was murdered 150 years before, and she doesn't know how to get back. She doesn't know. This one, she finds herself traveling back in time, and she had familial connections with her going back, and she was able to go back and forth. And the part that was really crazy too was, like, at one point she spends months back in the 1800s. She spends months there. She gets home and she realizes she's only been gone for a few hours. So time is kind of, it really plays with time, because she could be gone for what feels like 8 months to her, and is actually just like 3 hours. Or she could be home for 8 days, and 5 years could pass in the 1800s. So it's really played around with a lot, but it's done really well. And they explain it in here well enough that it's easy to follow. I really enjoyed this book. I really thought it was a really good book. It was really interesting. It was a very interesting perspective. It was an interesting look in what was going on. And it was just, I really enjoyed it, and it was a really good one. So now, this morning, since I finished Kindred yesterday, it is 7:45 right now, and I have to start a new book. And I've decided that the book that I'm going to start is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This one is something, it says, at first it looks like a disease, an epidemic that spreads through no known means, driving its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. But the force that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shockwave, unleashed by a stunning discovery. And what's in jeopardy is not our minds, but the very fabric of time itself. In New York City, Detective Barry Sutton is closing in on the truth, and in a remote laboratory, neuroscientist Helena Smith is unaware that she alone holds the key to this mystery and the tools for fighting back. So I've read the first, 12 pages of this so far, and Barry, in November of 2018, November of 2018, he is a detective, and his first interaction in this book is with a woman who has had a mind swap kind of thing, or it's called FMS. It's a false mind syndrome or something like that, where she has all these memories from another life, but where, she's married and to this man, and she has a son and whatnot, but then she wakes up and those memories are there, but they're not real. So her son never existed. She's not actually married to this man. This man is there, but she's not actually married to him. And it's driven her to try to commit suicide, which is, I don't know, that's a difficult thing to start with. But that is where this starts. And then it switches perspectives to Helena. She's waiting for a proposal to come back, whether that's approved or denied. She gets a call from her father. Her mother, it sounds like, has progressing dementia and Alzheimer's. So she's progressively losing her memory, and she's trying to figure out a way to solve that, basically. And so far, the first 12 pages have been interesting. I'm not very far into it yet to have a fully formed opinion on it, but I am going to be reading this one today, and I will check back in with you once I get further, and hopefully do a better job of vlogging the rest of my books for this vlog than I have with the first two. But I will check back in with you once I've read some more. Good morning, guys. So it is about 9 o'clock on Thursday. It is March 7th. And I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of an update. So I started Recursion yesterday, and I am up to book 2, which is like 100 pages into this book. And the time travel element has really just kicked in. This book is very intriguing. The characters that it follows, the guy that it follows is Barry. He is a police officer who, about 11 years ago, his daughter was killed in a hit and run. And he's been grieving, and since then him and his wife have split up and whatnot. And he's just living his life. He meets a woman who believes that she has a disease that has to do with her memory, like a false memory disease, and she is going to commit suicide. And then he believes that he might have contracted that disease because they don't know how it spreads. Now, the other perspective is from Helena. She is a neuroscientist, I believe, that she has an idea for creating something that can preserve the memories for those like her mother who have gotten Alzheimer's. And it's a way of trying to preserve their memories when those with Alzheimer's lose them. And so it's going back and forth between those two perspectives, and that's between 2008 and 2018, or right around then. So far, it's really interesting. I'm really intrigued, but I really like Dark Matter too until it kind of got to the ending, and then it kind of fell off the bandwagon for me. So far I'm really enjoying this one. Like I said, I'm only about 100 pages into this, and I still have more to read, obviously, but I am enjoying my time with it. Hey guys, so it is now Monday. I have once again done a horrible job of vlogging. Last time I checked in with you was on Thursday, and I was reading Recursion. And then Friday I was in town at my mom's house, so I was busy with that. Saturday was our 8-year anniversary. We had a nice day. We didn't really do anything like special, but it was just nice. We had a nice dinner here at home with the kids, and just had a nice day. And then Sunday, we didn't really do anything. I read a bit. I finished Recursion. I really enjoyed this book. The time travel element didn't really come into play a ton, at least not being clarified until like book 2, part 2, which was like 100 pages in. And everything kind of starts spiraling from there. This book was really good. I gave it like 4 to 4.5 stars. It got a little bit complicated for me just because there are a lot of technical terms that he incorporates in his books that always kind of feel like they're going over my head. Like, I understand what's happening, but sometimes I just feel like I'm kind of skimming because I don't understand all of the terms that he's using in his books. But I did like this one. I liked this one a lot more than I liked Dark Matter. Dark Matter got a little weird at the end. This one, I really liked it. It was really good. The way that everything plays out with the time jumping and the outcomes that can happen because of those time loops, and what happens with Barry, and also what happens with Helena. Like, I was really intrigued. And Blake Crouch's writing It's really easy to read and it moves very quickly. So this book is like 320 pages, but it reads really quickly. You move through it really fast. The chapters aren't super long. There's always like a progression going, and they're fast paced for what they are. It did get a little convoluted at times because you're jumping through time so much and so many different ways and so many different timelines, and it gets a little bit confusing just because there is so much of it. But I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I think his writing style is really interesting, and he has a really great way of making it seem really complicated, but still making it to where you can grasp what's going on so you can understand what's happening. So like I said, I gave this one like 4 to 4.5 stars. I did really enjoy this one. I liked this one a lot better than I liked Dark Matter. I liked the way that everything kind of played out, and I liked seeing that progression through time and what happens with the chair. And I had a good time with this book. So I have finished, this is the third book that I have finished for this vlog. I don't know if I'll be able to finish this vlog by Thursday, but we will see. This morning, I picked up Here and Now and Then. This is by Mike Chen. This book is about a man named Ken, who is from the year 2134, and he travels back in time to 1996. He actually finds himself trapped in 1996. He can't go back to his own time. He has no way of corresponding with the people in his own time. And so he ends up just starting to kind of live his life and like build his life in 1996. And then something causes this beacon that he's held on to over the years. Something happens to activate this beacon, basically, that allows his colleagues from the future to find him. And then they take him back to the future, but he has to leave behind his wife and his daughter. So now he's back in his own time in 2134, where he has a fiance and his career. He still has these memories of almost 20 years that have passed that he spent in this whole other timeline. All of these feelings and whatnot for his past life, his past self. And he doesn't feel a connection anymore to his current fiance. He has the chance to look in on his wife, Heather, and Miranda from his time in the future, and finds out something happened to Heather, and Miranda kind of got derailed. He's trying to figure out how he can help Miranda without having even more catastrophe happen. So that is the point where I am at now. I am 126 pages in already. I've read through this, it's 11:30 almost right now, and I've been reading this for like the last couple hours, and I'm 120 pages into it. So far I'm enjoying it. It's really moving quickly, and I'm really curious to see what happens with Ken and Miranda and how everything is going to play out. I'm really intrigued. This book, like I said, is reading really quickly. I'm really enjoying it so far. So like I said, this is the fourth book that I'm reading for this time travel vlog. I'm having a really good time with reading all of these books, and it's really interesting because they're all based around time travel in some way or form. And it's interesting to see how each of the authors creates their story with this time travel, how they explain it, if they explain it, how things play out, whether they're going to the future or going to the past, or how they do it. Because like in Kindred, it was a connection between her and Rufus, her ancestor, whereas with A Rip Through Time, there wasn't really a connection. It was just the way things happen. It was just a chance thing that she got strangled in the exact same time, in the exact same fashion, in the exact same place as this other girl, and then she's transported back to her body. And then in Recursion, it's all with this chair, that it's all through memories that they're able to travel. And now with this one, it's just a futuristic thing, and it's not really explained yet how they do it. It's just that they do it. And so it's really interesting to see how each of these authors looks at time travel and how it tells their story, or how it is just how it's explored. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really having a great time reading all these books. I haven't had a 5-star, which is unfortunate, But at the same time, like, I've really enjoyed what I've read. I've given 4 stars to each of the 3 books that I've read so far, and I'm really intrigued with Here and Now and Then, and I'm just having a really great time. So yeah, anyways, I am going to keep reading this, and I will check back in with you when I get a little bit further into it and have some more thoughts of what's going to happen and what's playing out with this book. Hey guys, so it is now 4:47 in the afternoon. It's still Monday, and I am almost finished with Here and Now and Then. When he finally gets back to his time, he finds out that his daughter has gone into a downward spiral after he leaves, and then something happens to his wife. And he tries to find a way that he can get her life back on course. And in doing so, he kind of sets off a set of chain reactions that make things not go how they're supposed to. It's basically that she knows information about the future that she shouldn't, and therefore it is decided that she needs to be dealt with. And so what it all comes down to is he's trying one way or another to save his daughter, whether that be to get her life back on track or to save her life. It kind of goes back and forth. This book is such a quick read, and it is so intriguing. I am up to 265 pages in this book right now, so I don't have very much left. I only have maybe 80 pages. It's like 6 chapters left. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a good time. It's really interesting. There's nothing like specific off the top of my head that's wrong with it. I don't connect with the characters a ton, but I'm still really enjoying it. And I really like all the dynamics between like him and his daughter, and like him having to realize that there are things that he overlooked as a father. As it happens when you're a parent, you see things one way that maybe aren't exactly how they're playing out from somebody else's perspective. And so he's having to figure that out. I think that Marcus and Penny, who are from the future, his future life, his fiance and her brother, I think their characters are fine, but they're kind of flat, like they're kind of one note. And so they're not like super engrossing to me. And I think that's part of the reason that this isn't like absolutely all-time new favorite book or anything. And I feel like it might be kind of forgettable in its own way. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really liking the futuristic look of things, the aspect of it being more set in the future than some of the other ones that I've read. A lot of these, or like all of these books that I've read so far have all been going back in time. However, this one it's still going back in time, but it's from such a futuristic date or a futuristic year that you have that future aspect, how things are more advanced, how there's flying cars and what, you know, things like that. So it's really interesting to see this perspective as well. I also just really like the fact that it is all like surrounding him and his daughter. In the other ones, it hasn't had that familial connection so much. I mean, it has like with Kindred, but that was an ancestor, so it wasn't as close of a connection. So I'm really enjoying it. I am gonna probably finish this one out tonight. Most likely I will probably stay up way too late to binge read it and finish this one out today. But like I said, so far I'm really enjoying it, and I will check back in with you to give my final thoughts and my final rating for this one after a while, or maybe tomorrow, depending on how late I finish this. Okay guys, so it is now Wednesday, and I have finished 4 books for this vlog in the last like week and a half or so. I haven't updated you yet. I did end up finishing Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen on Monday. I stayed up until like 10:30 or 11 o'clock reading this book, and I finished it. And the ending of this book gave me goosebumps while I was reading it. I loved it. It was so good. The characters still, I felt like they were a little bit one note. Overall, I feel like there was this one specific thing that was their character was based around. With Penny, it was being a chef, and with him, with Ken, he was this investigator and he wanted to save his daughter. And so I just felt like they were pretty one note, but I did really enjoy this book. I think I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. It was what I kind of ended at. When I put it in a call pile, it came out as 4, but that just felt like it was too low for as much as I enjoyed this. So I did bump that up to a 4.5, and I had a really great time. So all in all, I am just gonna kind of cut things off here. I'm sitting in a good spot, and I'm just gonna stick with the 4 books for this vlog rather than putting off this video to try and read a 5th one. I'm just gonna end it here with the 4 books, and I had such a great time. So these are the 4 books that I read for this vlog. The first one that I read was A Rip Through Time by Kelly Armstrong. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I thought her descriptions were really well done. I really liked that she did write it from a Canadian's perspective in Edinburgh. I thought that was a very smart decision, seeing as she is a Canadian herself. And it kind of helped with any discrepancies that others might have. However, because I live in Colorado and I have never been to Scotland, I didn't notice any discrepancies because I don't know what I'm talking about. So I did really enjoy this one, and I actually put the second book, which is called The Poisoner's Ring. I put that one on hold at my library, so I'm actually hoping to pick that one up potentially tomorrow. But I did really enjoy this book. I have recommended it to my mom. I've told her that I think that she would like it because she likes all the investigator kind of stories. And I just thought this was kind of an interesting take on that, with her being sent back in time. So I am excited to continue on this series. Like I said, I gave this 4 stars. The next book that I read for this vlog was Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This book was so good. It was so well done, with her traveling back in time to right around 1819 as a modern Black woman. Going back to 1819 is pretty detrimental to her, because she is going back to a time with slavery being in full force in America, and having to live through it and experience it firsthand of what it is like to live and communicate with other people who are enslaved to the white men of the time. I thought it was very interesting. I thought the writing was really good. It was pretty brisk. It was a quick read, but it was very gripping. She was very blunt about things, things such as rape are brought up as a norm because it happened back then, particularly raping the slave women because they could, as well as beatings, them getting whipped and getting beaten for really pretty much anything that they wanted to. So if those things are things that would bother you, do definitely have that in mind. I know that because this is what it is, it's kind of expected. You kind of know going into that she is going back to a time of slavery. But for those of you who might not realize that or expect that, she does talk about it in this. And like I said, she's very blunt about it. She's not sugarcoating it, but it is there. And I thought she did it in a really good way. I thought that it was very, very well done. The only thing that I don't like with this one was like the very last time that she travels, something happens, and I didn't really get it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well, but it was kind of odd the way that things kind of wrapped up with her coming back the last time. I just thought it was kind of strange, and I didn't think that was described as well as it could have been. It was just kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of weird. But I did overall really enjoy this book, a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest. I went into this one kind of skeptically because it's just not the kind of thing that I usually read. And I had heard that, or I had seen on YouTube that Kayla from Books and Lala loved this book. And so that's what really... The next book that I read for this vlog was Recursion by Blake Crouch. This one was so interesting. So I've already read Dark Matter by him, and I didn't really care for it. I thought that Dark Matter, the ending of it, just didn't do it for me. It got too weird. I just didn't get on with that one very well. This one I liked so much better. The time loops, the time jumping, the action, the sense of running out of time, and the way that it left off. I felt like everything wrapped up, but at the same time, it left things kind of open-ended, and I really liked that for this book. it worked out really well. I do really like his writing style. However, I feel like he can get a little bit technical at times. So like there are some points in this book where like he's talking about all the scientific background with Helena's science background and whatnot, and I feel like things got just a little bit technical at times, and that makes it hard to follow to an extent, because it's not such a big part of this book that you don't understand what's happening in the book. It's just I kind of skim over it, or at least I feel like I do. So that was my biggest thing with this one, is just that it is what it is, and it's his way of writing. He did the same thing in Dark Matter, as I recall, and so there's just some things that kind of felt like it goes over my head, but I kind of skim through those parts and I move on, and then everything is fine. So I gave this one between like a 4 to 4.5. I really enjoyed it, and I really liked the way that it wrapped up, but it wasn't quite 5 stars for me. I'm not really sure what could have made it that way. I really don't know, but it just wasn't quite there. And last but not least, like I've already mentioned, the last book that I read for this vlog is Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen. Like I said, this one, the ending of it gave me goosebumps. I absolutely loved it. I loved the father-daughter relationship. I liked that he felt like he really messed up and that he wanted to fix that, because he wasn't completely in control of the fact that he messed up, because he was it kind of forced his hand to have to go back to his own time, and it was, you know, he wanted to fix his mistakes at the same time, and he wanted to be there for his daughter, and I really liked that. But like I said, the characters were just a little bit one note, and you know, I think that there was more depth that could be had in these characters, and really that's like my only thing with this. I liked the pacing of this. I thought the pacing was done very well. I thought it was interesting, him talking about the future with the flying cars and whatnot. I thought it was a really interesting take, all the holograph, and I had a really good time with this, and I really enjoyed it. So I did end up with a 4.5 for this. I don't remember if I mentioned that or not, but I did end up with 4.5 stars for this one. So those are the 4 books that I have been reading for the last week and a half or so. Have you read any of these books, and have you had the same thoughts I've had with, say, like Recursion, especially with Blake Crouch? I know a lot of people absolutely love Dark Matter, but I just didn't vibe with it. So have you read any of these books? Have you liked them? Are you wanting to try them out? I would love to hear your thoughts on these books. And I hope that I have maybe inspired you to pick up something that maybe you wouldn't have, like Here and Now and Then, because I've never heard of this one, and I'm really glad that I read it. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, comment down below. We can chat about these books, we can talk about other books. Are there any books that you would like to recommend to me that you think that I would enjoy? I would love to hear your thoughts, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!